You have to choose, Emily. Him or me. I remember how those words came out of my mouth, tight, bitter, trembling. I didn't even recognize my own voice. And the look on her face, like someone had just pulled the floor out from under her. She stood there in the doorway of my apartment, eyes wide and wet, arms folded across her chest like she was trying to hold herself together. But how could she hold together what was already breaking? She didn't say anything. Not then. And maybe that silence was worse than anything she could have said. But I should start from the beginning, because this story didn't start with Emily. It started long before her, with someone else, my twin brother. My name is Ryan. And yes, I have a twin. His name is Evan. We came into this world 5 minutes apart, and maybe that 5 minutes cursed us both. Because 5 minutes was just enough time for life to twist us into versions of each other that no one could quite tell apart, except us. You'd think having a twin means always being compared. But for us, we made sure that never happened. We built our lives in 2 parallel lanes, same DNA, sure, but different everything else. Different high schools. Different colleges. Different cities for a while. We even used different names publicly. I went by Ryan Michaels, he used Evan Gray. It was a pact we made in high school, a promise to carve out separate paths, so we wouldn't constantly be mistaken for one another. Most people didn't even know we were brothers, let alone twins. And for years, it worked. We kept our worlds far enough apart that we could pretend we were just 2 ordinary guys living ordinary lives. But all of that changed the night I met her. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were my escape days. I'd hit up this quiet little bar down the street after work, grab a beer, maybe read a few chapters of whatever novel I was pretending to finish, and disappear from the world for a while. I liked the solitude. It gave me time to breathe. But that night, everything was different. She walked in with a group of friends, her laughter caught me first. It wasn't loud, but it was the kind that made you stop and look. Like music that didn't belong in the background. She wasn't dressed to impress, just jeans and a loose-fitting black sweater, but she owned the room without trying. Some people are like that. Born with a kind of quiet gravity that draws everything toward them. I didn't mean to stare. But I did. She caught me once, and I smiled like an idiot. She smiled back. 20 minutes later, I found myself sitting next to her at the bar. I have no idea how I got there. 1 second I was nursing my beer, the next I was asking her name. Emily, she said. And then she said mine. Ryan, right. That threw me. I didn't remember giving it. Yeah, I nodded. How did you? You have that look, she smirked, playful but unreadable. Like someone who doesn't go to bars to pick up women. We laughed. I told her she was right. She said she liked that. We talked until the lights dimmed low and the bartender wiped down the last glass. She touched my arm when she laughed, and I felt it like a shock up my spine. When she left, she kissed me on the cheek and said, I hope I see you again, Ryan. I was smiling the entire walk home. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Emily had already met my brother. Because the night before that Thursday, Evan had gone to that very same bar. We'd never talked about it. Evan and I didn't see each other much these days, maybe once every couple weeks for a jog or to check in. That weekend, we were running along the river like we always did, side by side, falling into that old, comfortable rhythm. I met someone, he said, a little out of breath. My heart jumped into my throat. Oh yeah? I asked, trying to sound casual. Her name's Emily. The world stopped for a second. Just the sound of our sneakers against the pavement and my pulse pounding in my ears. I almost stumbled. I almost said something. But I didn't. Emily. It had to be the same girl, right? Same bar, same name, same kind of magic in her smile. I could have asked. I could have told him right then. But instead, I said, cool, and kept running. Faster than before. Like I could outrun the knot twisting in my gut. I told myself it was a coincidence. Emily is a common name. Maybe it wasn't the same person. But a week later, I found out the truth. Emily invited me over to her place. I remember standing in her tiny kitchen while she made tea, her bare feet on the tile, hair up in a messy knot. It felt so normal, so warm. Like I belonged there. Then I saw it. A photo on her fridge. Her and Evan. Laughing, arms around each other. His head tilted in that exact way I tilt mine when I'm with someone I trust. I felt sick. I stared at the picture, and the longer I looked, the more obvious it became. She didn't know we were twins. She just thought she was dating two different guys. Two strangers. I didn't tell her that night. I couldn't. I was too stunned, too confused, too angry at myself for letting it get this far. When I left, she kissed me goodbye. And I kissed her back. That part haunts me the most. Because I knew the truth then, and I still kissed her like nothing was wrong. The next morning, I called Evan. I asked him if he was still seeing her. Kind of, he said. It's weird. She's been distant lately. Thought maybe I screwed something up. She tell you she's seeing someone else? I asked, carefully. No. Why? I lied. I said it was just a hypothetical. But I knew. And deep down, he did too. That's when it all started falling apart. We were both in love with the same woman. And neither of us was willing to give her up. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every conversation, every look, every word Emily had said. The way she tilted her head when she was confused. The way she traced the rim of her glass when she was nervous. I tried to remember if she ever looked at me the way she looked in that photo with Evan. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Not between what was real and what was imagined. Not between the love I felt and the guilt that kept tightening around my throat like a noose. I thought about calling her. About showing up at her place and laying it all out, the truth, the lies, the secret I'd been carrying like a ticking time bomb. But I didn't. I was afraid of her answer. Afraid of losing her. Afraid she might choose him. Or worse, she might not choose either of us. The following week, I kept my distance. I ignored her texts. Said I was swamped with work. Said I was tired. Said anything I could to buy time. Evan was still seeing her. He didn't talk about it much, and I didn't ask. But I knew. I could see it in his face whenever her name came up. That dumb smile. That spark in his eyes that I used to see in mine. Before all of this. Then, something happened that blew everything open. It was a Saturday. I remember because it rained that morning, and the sky looked like it was mourning something. I was out for groceries, trying to distract myself with the ordinary, when I saw them. Emily. And Evan. At a cafe. Sitting at a table by the window. They were laughing. She had her hand on his, her head tilted toward him, her lips parted like she was in the middle of whispering something only he could hear. And then she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't a polite, unsure kiss. It was warm. Familiar. It was mine. I turned around and walked out. Left everything in the basket. I don't even remember how I got home. I just remember the feeling, like someone had reached into my chest and twisted every bone until something cracked. For hours, I sat on my couch, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed a few times, probably Emily. Maybe Evan. I didn't care. Eventually, I called him. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, man," he said, cheerful. "What's up?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said it. Slowly. Like each word was made of glass and I was afraid of it shattering. "I saw you with her." Silence. "Who?" "Emily." Long pause. He sighed. "You've been following me now?" "No," I said sharply. "I was at the cafe. I saw you too. Kissing." More silence. Then, quietly, "So now what?" I let the question hang in the air. I didn't know how to answer it. "Are you still seeing her?" I finally asked. "Yeah," he said. "But she's been weird lately. Like something's bothering her." I almost laughed. "You think?" That's when I told him everything. About the night I met her. About the picture on the fridge. About the texts, the kisses, the nights we spent talking until morning. About how I realized she didn't know we were twins, and still didn't say anything. He didn't yell. Didn't curse. Just listened. When I finished, he was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "So she's been dating both of us." Without knowing. Or maybe knowing. I hesitated. "I don't think she knows." "Ryan," he said, voice flat, "she has to know. She's smart. She's not blind." I didn't want to believe that. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. A tragic misunderstanding. Something we could laugh about years from now. But I think I knew the truth. "She's playing us," Evan said finally. "I don't think it's that simple." "No," he said, "it never is with you." That hit harder than it should have. We didn't talk after that. 4 days. Then, one evening, he showed up at my door. He didn't knock. Just walked in like he used to, back when we were kids and didn't have to pretend we were strangers. He held out his phone. "Read this." It was a text. From Emily. "Last night was unforgettable. I can't stop thinking about you. Except." I sent that text. To her. I looked up at him, throat dry. "You went through her phone." "She left it on the table while she was in the bathroom," he said. It buzzed. "I saw your name." I didn't defend myself. What could I say? We stood there, two men who had once shared everything, toys, secrets, birthdays, now staring at each other like enemies. "You've been seeing her," he said, voice tight. "You lied." "So did you." "She thinks we're the same guy, Ryan." "You used that." "No," I said, anger flaring. "I think she knows. She just didn't want to ask." "You still love her?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "So do I." The air between us turned sharp. Cold. Like a storm waiting to break. We both knew what had to happen. "We tell her," I said. Evan looked at me. "Everything." "Everything." So we did. We texted her that night. Asked to meet. Said we had something important to tell her. She suggested my place. Said it would feel more neutral. When she arrived, she looked nervous. She walked in slowly, like she could already feel the tension crackling in the air. We both sat on the couch. She sat across from us, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Then we told her. About the twin thing. About how we'd both fallen for her. About the dates, the confusion, the jealousy. About how neither of us could bring ourselves to walk away. She didn't say a word. When we finished, Evan looked at her. "Well," he asked, voice brittle. She blinked. Swallowed hard. And then, softly, she said it. "I knew. I knew." That's what she said. And in that moment, it felt like every bone in my body turned to glass. Evan and I just sat there, stunned, staring at her. Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic. Like she was confessing to something minor, like forgetting to return a borrowed book, not turning 2 lives upside down. "You knew." Evan repeated slowly. She nodded, looking down at her hands. Not at first. But eventually, yes. My heart was pounding in my ears. "When?" She looked up. Her eyes glistened with something between guilt and defiance. "The first night I invited you over, Ryan. You saw the photo on the fridge, didn't you?" I didn't answer. She gave a soft, bitter laugh. "I saw your eyes when you looked at it. You recognized him. You knew. But you didn't say anything either." I felt like I was going to be sick. "You let it continue," Evan said, voice low. "You didn't stop it." "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "I was falling in love with both of you. And I thought maybe. I don't know, maybe you were testing me. Or maybe you knew and you just didn't care." "That's insane," Evan snapped. "We're not characters in some twisted experiment." "No, you're not," she said quickly. "I know that now." I know I messed everything up. I stood up, unable to sit still. Why didn't you just say something? Because I didn't want to lose either of you, she said. Her voice cracked on the last word, and I saw a tear slide down her cheek. It sounds selfish, I know. But I was scared. You two were incredible in different ways. Ryan, you were thoughtful and gentle and vulnerable. And Evan, you were bold, passionate, honest. She wiped her face. I thought maybe I was lucky. That I had met two people who made me feel whole in ways I never imagined. But it was a lie, I said bitterly. You were lying to all of us. Even yourself. Silence settled like fog. The kind that doesn't lift, even when the sun comes up. I never meant to hurt anyone, she whispered. But you did, Evan said. She nodded. I know. We were quiet after that. No yelling. No accusations. Just stillness. The heavy kind. And then she stood. I can't ask either of you to forgive me, she said. And I won't try to explain it away. I let something happen that I should have stopped. I was afraid, and then I was addicted to the attention, and then I didn't know how to untangle it without hurting someone. But the truth is, I do love you both. And I hate myself for that. She took her coat off the back of the chair. So I'm choosing neither. My throat tightened. What? I'm walking away, she said. From both of you. Evan scoffed. So you get to disappear now and leave us here to clean it all up? Her voice was steady, but her eyes were swimming. You deserve peace. Not this. Not me. And then she left. Just like that. The door clicked shut behind her, and all that was left was silence. It rang louder than any shouting match ever could. I sank back onto the couch. Evan sat across from me, elbows on his knees, head bowed like he was praying to no one. Neither of us said a word for a long time. The next few weeks were a blur. We didn't talk much. The twin bond we used to brag about as kids, the one people romanticize like it's some magical, unbreakable rope, felt frayed. We'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. Some days, I wanted to hate him. Other days, I just hated myself. Emily tried to reach out once. A message. Just a single line. I'm sorry. I hope one day you'll forgive me. I didn't respond. Evan didn't either. But she didn't block us. And we didn't block her. We just went silent. Like ghosts haunting each other from a distance. I tried to move on. I really did. I went on dates. Smiled at strangers. Let myself get dragged into office happy hours and rooftop gatherings. I even kissed someone new once. It felt like kissing a photograph, two-dimensional, lifeless. Evan disappeared for a while. Took a solo trip to Oregon. Said he needed space. I didn't ask questions. When he came back, he looked leaner, quieter. Like something had shifted deep in him. Still think about her? I asked one night when we met up for drinks. He stared into his glass. Every day. Yeah. Me too. He looked up. But I don't regret walking away. Neither do I. That was the first time in months we had agreed on something. Then, one afternoon, nearly 6 months after she left, I saw her again. It was in the bookstore down on 9th. I ducked in to escape the rain, flipping aimlessly through pages I wouldn't buy. And there she was, standing in the self-help section, looking at a book about healing after heartbreak. Our eyes met. She froze. I didn't move either. Then she smiled, barely. Hey, she said softly. Hey. We stood there for a moment, unsure what to say. She was different. Not in the way she looked, though she had cut her hair shorter, but in her eyes. There was something heavier there. Calmer. Like she had walked through a storm and come out soaked but standing. You look good, she said. Thanks. I wasn't sure I'd ever see you again. Me neither. Another silence. But it wasn't tense. Just tired. How's Evan? She asked. He's okay, I said. He's teaching now. Writing workshops. She smiled. That suits him. I nodded. And you? I'm in therapy, she said. Finally. Trying to figure myself out. I appreciated her honesty. Maybe too much. I'm glad, I said. She looked down at the book in her hand. I'm really sorry, Ryan. For everything. I wasn't trying to play a game. I just wasn't whole. I didn't know how much damage a broken person could cause. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the only thing that felt true. I loved you. Her eyes filled again. She didn't look away. I loved you too, she whispered. She reached out. Not to hold me, not to ask for anything. Just a touch on my sleeve. A gesture of closure. Then she turned and walked away. This time, it felt different. This time, it felt like the end. After that day in the bookstore, I didn't see Emily again. But something shifted in me. It wasn't closure, not really. Closure is a fantasy word, like happily ever after. What I had was a kind of quiet understanding that not every story ends with a perfect bow, and sometimes, the people who shape you the most are the ones who don't stay. I started writing again. Not professionally, not for work, just for me. Little pieces of memory, letters I never sent, conversations I replayed in my head. Pages filled with things I wished I had said, to Emily, to Evan, even to myself. Evan and I kept our distance for a while, though it wasn't cold anymore. Just cautious. Like people walking barefoot over broken glass. We were trying to build something again, but neither of us wanted to admit how fragile it still felt. One night, maybe 3 months after the bookstore, he called. Want to grab dinner? I hesitated. Then I said yes. We met at our old spot, a small diner we used to visit after high school football games. They still had the same cracked red booths and greasy fries that tasted like nostalgia. Evan was already there when I walked in. He looked up, gave a half smile. You look like you've been sleeping more. I shrugged. A little. We sat, ordered the usual, and for a few minutes, we pretended like nothing had happened. Talked about work, books, podcasts. Safe things. Then he set down his drink and looked at me. I've been thinking about her. I nodded. Me too. But not in the same way, he added quickly. I don't miss her like before. I think I miss the version of her I imagined. Yeah, I said. The version we both built up in our heads. He leaned back. I've also been thinking about us. How we let it all happen. How we kept that secret for so long, about being twins. I stayed quiet. I wonder if that secret made us selfish, he continued. Like we got used to keeping people out. Keeping everything between just us. And then Emily, she forced the world in. There was something honest in his voice. Unpolished. No performance. I sighed. We built a trap for ourselves, didn't we? He looked at me. We should have told her. From the start. I know. He poked at his fries. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had. If she would have walked away then. I thought about that. About the first night I kissed her. About the way her hand fit in mine. About the way I had told myself, just once, just this one time, just one secret. Secrets have a way of multiplying. Like mirrors facing each other. You lose track of which one is the original and which is the reflection. You ever think we were in love with her? I asked, or just in love with the idea of someone choosing between us? Evan looked up slowly. I hadn't meant to say it out loud. But there it was. I think, he said after a long pause, that we both needed to feel chosen. And there it was. The truth neither of us had dared say. Growing up as twins was always a dance. People thought it was cute, dressing alike, switching names as a joke, finishing each other's sentences. But they never saw the competition. The quiet resentment. The feeling that no matter what you achieved, you were only ever half of something. We shared everything. And it wasn't always beautiful. I stared at the peeling linoleum on the diner floor. Do you think we ruined each other's chances at real love? He shook his head. No. I think we just finally reached the point where pretending didn't work anymore. There was something strangely comforting in that. Like he was giving me permission to stop carrying the guilt. He smiled faintly. I'm moving, by the way. Got a job offer in Portland. Teaching full-time. I looked up, surprised. When? End of the month. I wasn't sure what to say. Portland felt far. And final. He read my silence and added, it's not running away. It's just starting over. I nodded slowly. You should go. I think it'll be good for you. He smiled. Yeah. I think so too. That night, when I got home, I opened my laptop and started writing again. Not just scattered thoughts or fragments, but a story. One with characters who made mistakes, who carried secrets, who hurt each other and still tried to forgive. I wrote about brothers. About mirrors. About what it means to be whole when the world sees you as part of a set. And I wrote about a woman who walked away, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much to keep breaking things. Weeks passed. I helped Evan pack. We didn't say much during those hours, just folded clothes, boxed books, carried pieces of his life into the back of a rental truck. The morning he left, we stood in the driveway. He looked at me, keys in hand. We'll be okay, right? I nodded. Yeah. We will. He smiled, then hugged me. The kind of hug that doesn't need words. The kind that means something's over, but not gone. As he pulled away, he added, no more secrets next time. No more, I agreed. And then he drove off. I stood there long after the truck disappeared, listening to the wind rustle through the trees. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something. Or someone. I just felt still. That night, I opened my email. And I did something I hadn't dared to do before. I wrote to Emily. Not a love letter. Not a plea. Just this. Thank you for loving us, even when it was messy. I hope you find someone who can give you their whole self. I'm working on being mine. I didn't expect a reply. And for a while, none came. But 3 days later, one did. It was short. Thank you. I'm working on that too. That was it. But somehow, it was enough. And maybe that's what growing up is, not tying up every thread or explaining every pain, but learning to live with the mess. To carry what matters, and finally set down what doesn't. They say time heals everything. I don't believe that. Time doesn't heal. It just puts distance between the wound and the present. The pain dulls, but it doesn't vanish. You just learn how to carry it without bleeding all over everything you touch. After Evan moved to Portland, the silence in my apartment was louder than ever. I didn't realize how much space he took up in my life, not just physically, but emotionally. We were twins, but more than that, we were constant. Predictable in each other's chaos. Losing that rhythm felt like learning to walk again with one leg heavier than the other. I started to fill my time in odd ways. I took long walks with no destination. I bought groceries I didn't need. I even took a pottery class, which I quit after 2 sessions when I realized I was sculpting versions of faces I couldn't forget. One day, I found myself going through an old box of photos. Most were from our childhood, birthday cakes with 2 names in icing, matching Halloween costumes, side-by-side school portraits. Then there were the more recent ones. I found one of Emily and me, taken at a street fair. She had cotton candy in one hand and her other hand was tangled in my hair, mid-laugh. I must have taken it right before she kissed me. It was so innocent. So unaware. I stared at that picture for a long time. Then I put it back. It didn't hurt like it used to. But it still echoed. A few weeks later, Evan called. Guess who got engaged? My stomach dropped. You. He laughed. No, man. Not me. Then who? There was a pause. Then he said, Emily. Silence. He let that settle before adding, I saw it on her Instagram. Some guy named Carter. They look good together. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't looked at her profile in months. I thought I'd moved past that phase, the need to check, to compare, to dissect every photo like it was a clue. "Are you okay?" he asked. I waited, really checking in with myself. "Yeah," I said finally. "I think I am." And I meant it. That night, I did something strange. I wrote her name down on a piece of paper. Just Emily. Then I folded it in half and set it on fire over the kitchen sink. I'm not one for rituals or dramatics. But something about that, watching it curl into ash, felt freeing. Not angry. Just done. After that, I started building something new. Not a relationship. Not yet. Just a better version of myself. I started running again. The kind of running that clears your head. I read more. I finally fixed the broken lamp in the living room and donated the books I knew I'd never read. And then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. Her name was Jordan. We met at a friend's birthday party. She was wearing an old band t-shirt and had paint smudges on her hands from working on a mural earlier that day. She asked what I did. I told her I used to write, but now I mostly repair myself. She laughed. Not politely, really laughed. Well, that's honest. We spent the rest of the night sitting on a rooftop, talking about everything and nothing. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer it. It felt clean. Like someone wiping the fog from a mirror and letting you see yourself again. We started seeing each other casually. Slowly. No games. No expectations. One night, a few weeks in, she asked, "Do you believe people can love more than one person at once?" It caught me off guard. I paused, then said, "I think people can feel like they do. But love, real love, needs full attention. You can't be split and still be whole." She nodded like she understood more than I'd said. Good answer. Later that night, she told me about her own past. A messy breakup with someone who had made her feel like she was always the backup plan. "I don't ever want to feel like a placeholder again," she said. "You won't," I told her. And I meant that too. But the truth is, even as things with Jordan slowly grew into something real, something gentle, I couldn't pretend I wasn't still haunted. Not by Emily. Not anymore. But by the version of myself who thought he could control everything. The guy who believed secrets kept people safe. The guy who thought love was something you win. I didn't want to be him again. One rainy Saturday morning, Jordan and I were lying on the couch, legs tangled, coffee growing cold on the table. She looked at me and said, "You're quieter today." "I'm always quiet," I said. "No," she said, "this is a different quiet." I smiled. She saw through things too easily. So I told her. Everything. About Evan. About Emily. About the lies and the jealousy and the fallout. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't defend myself. I just told the truth. When I finished, I waited. I expected her to pull away. To change. Instead, she reached for my hand. "That's a lot," she said softly. "But you're not that guy anymore." I looked at her. "How do you know?" "Because you told me," she said. "And people who hide things don't tell stories like that. Not unless they've changed." That was the moment I realized something important. Healing doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means owning it, and choosing better next time. We stayed on that couch for hours. No distractions. Just two people sharing space and stories and slowly melting years of fear with honesty. A few nights later, Evan called again. "Guess what?" "What now?" I said, smiling. "I think I'm ready to date again." I laughed. "Really?" "Yeah," he said. "There's someone at the school. She's nothing like Emily. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is." He paused. "You happy, Ree?" I looked across the room at Jordan, painting with her headphones in, lost in her own little world. "Yeah," I said. "I think I'm finally getting there." "Good," he said. "We both deserve that." And in that moment, I realized something else. The story wasn't about Emily. It was about us. Two brothers trying to figure out who they were without being defined by each other. Two people learning that love isn't about being chosen over someone else, it's about being seen. Fully. Flaws and all. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. It's strange how healing isn't a straight line. You think you've climbed out of the storm, only to realize there's another cloud hanging just above your head, quieter, but still there. Things with Jordan were steady. Not perfect, not cinematic, but real. And real felt safe. We spent more nights together now. She started leaving a toothbrush in my bathroom, her sketchbook on the kitchen table. I didn't mind. In fact, I liked it, the slow stitching of a shared life. No drama. No guessing games. Just two people figuring it out one day at a time. But then, something unexpected happened. Evan came to visit. He'd been gone for 6 months, and I hadn't seen him in person since the morning he drove off. When I picked him up from the airport, he looked different. More grounded. Softer, in a good way. "You look older," I said. He laughed. "That's rude." "No, I mean it in a good way. Like, settled." "Well," he said, tossing his bag in the trunk, "you can thank adult responsibilities and overpriced oat milk." Back at my place, he met Jordan for the first time. They got along almost instantly, too well, honestly. That effortless charm twins are cursed with. The same jokes, the same way of tilting their heads when listening, the same disarming warmth. Jordan looked at him, then at me, and just blinked. "Wow," she whispered. "You really weren't exaggerating." Evan grinned. The resemblance is part of the package. But that night, as we all sat on the balcony drinking wine and swapping stories, something started to shift. At first, I couldn't name it. Jordan laughed more when Evan spoke. Not in a flirty way, not directly. But in that relaxed, open way she used to laugh with me. And Evan, well, he was just being Evan. Funny. Thoughtful. Magnetic without trying. It shouldn't have bothered me. But it did. And just like that, the old shadows crept back in. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was projecting. But once your heart's been burned in a particular shape, every new warmth can feel like fire. 2 nights later, Evan and I went out for drinks, just the two of us. He took a sip of his beer, then looked at me and said, "She's great, Ryan." Like, really great. I tensed. "Yeah. She is." There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for something to fall into it. Then he said, "You think you're gonna marry her?" I blinked. "That's kind of sudden." He smiled. "I don't mean tomorrow. Just, do you see it?" I stared at the condensation on my glass. "I don't know. I haven't let myself think that far ahead. But do you love her?" I looked up. Straight into his face. My own reflection in a different life. "Yes," I said quietly. "I do." He nodded slowly. "Good. Then don't mess it up." Something about the way he said that felt pointed. Or maybe I was just paranoid. But the truth was, I was starting to spiral. The next morning, Jordan noticed. "You're different lately," she said as she poured coffee. "Different how?" "More guarded. Like you're pulling away but pretending not to." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I considered lying. But I didn't. "I think I'm scared," I said. "Of what?" "Of this feeling I can't quite name. Of history repeating." She leaned against the counter. "Do you think I'd do what she did?" I shook my head. "No. I don't. But I think part of me still doesn't trust myself." She walked over and cupped my face in her hands. "You're not the same person, Ryan. You're allowed to be happy now. You don't have to earn it by waiting for it to fall apart." Her words hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. I'd spent so long bracing for loss that I didn't know how to relax into joy. Later that day, I took a walk. No destination. Just steps. I ended up in a part of town I rarely visited. A little street lined with antique shops and dusty bookstores. I stepped into one, the scent of old pages washing over me like memory. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. But in the back, tucked between two cracked leather volumes, I found a thin journal. No title. I opened it. Inside were blank pages, but someone had written one sentence on the first. Sometimes you have to unwrite your past to make room for the future. I bought it. Took it home. And that night, I started writing again. But not about Emily. Not about Evan. This time, I wrote about me. Just me. The version that wasn't defined by someone else's reflection or someone else's love. The version who finally understood that loving someone meant believing you were worthy of being loved back. That weekend, Evan told me he was extending his stay. Thinking about moving back, he said. My chest tightened. Really? Yeah. I miss the city. Miss you. I nodded. That'd be good. But I wasn't sure it would. The next day, Jordan and I went for a walk in the park. She held my hand the whole time, weaving her fingers between mine like she was anchoring me to the earth. Halfway through, she stopped. What are you afraid of? I looked at her. Really looked. And then I said, I'm afraid that I'll always wonder if the people in my life love me, or the version of me that's safest. Easiest. The one who doesn't take up too much space. She shook her head slowly. Ryan, you take up the right amount of space. And the people who can't handle that, they were never your people to begin with. That moment, those words, shifted something in me. Maybe for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to compete with my brother for space in the world. Maybe for the first time, I saw myself outside of him. When we got home, I told Evan that I was happy for him to stay, but that I needed boundaries. Not out of resentment. Out of love. He nodded. I understand. And he did. That night, I sat on the floor with Jordan, flipping through old photo albums. She paused on one, a picture of Evan and me at 10 years old, dressed as astronauts. Which one is you? She asked. I looked. And for the first time, I didn't know. We both stared at it, silent. Then she said, does it matter? I smiled. No, I whispered. Not anymore. It's strange, looking back. How something so small, a shared glance, a chance meeting, can pull you into a story you never meant to write. And yet here I am, pages later, finally learning how to end a chapter the right way. A few weeks after Evan told me he might move back, something unexpected happened. Emily reached out. It was a message. Simple. No punctuation. Just, can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. I didn't tell Jordan. I didn't tell Evan. I didn't even respond at first. I just let it sit there, glowing on my screen like a door I never expected to open again. The truth is, I didn't know what I wanted from her. Closure. Answers? Or maybe, nothing at all. But curiosity is a quiet drum. It beats just loud enough to pull you back. So, 2 days later, I replied. Okay. We met at a small cafe downtown. A place I'd never taken her before, and that felt important. I didn't want memories on the walls. I wanted something neutral. Clean. She arrived wearing a gray sweater and no makeup. She looked softer, more tired, maybe, but also more real than I remembered. Less curated. More human. Hi, she said, sitting down across from me. Hi. We didn't hug. She ordered chamomile tea. I ordered black coffee. For a while, we just sat there. Two people with too much to say and no idea where to begin. Finally, she spoke. I didn't reach out to get back together. I know, I said. I owed you the truth. Both of you. She took a deep breath. When I found out you were twins, it shook me. Not just because of the lie, but because it made everything make sense. The confusion I felt, the strange déjà vu. It wasn't just me imagining things. It was real. I nodded slowly. We never meant to hurt you. I know, she said. But you did. She wasn't angry. Just honest. I waited, letting her speak at her own pace. I was in love with both of you, she said, her voice almost a whisper. But not in the way either of you thought. I looked at her. What do you mean? You, Ryan, you made me feel safe. Like I could tell you anything. You listened. You understood the parts of me I didn't know how to explain. And Evan, he lit something up in me. He made me feel alive. Spontaneous. Reckless. She paused. But neither of you ever saw all of me. You each saw a side. A reflection. And I got lost trying to live in between. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. You hurt us too, I said, gently. I know, she nodded. And I regret it. But I think we all used each other to fill something that was already broken inside us. That hit harder than I expected. Because it was true. I had wanted her to love me more than Evan. Evan had wanted to prove he was more than just the fun one. And she had wanted someone to choose her for her whole self, not just a part. I'm happy now, I told her. I met someone. Her name's Jordan. Her face softened. That's good. You deserve that. So do you. She smiled. A small, tired smile. I think I'm finally getting there. When we said goodbye, we didn't promise to keep in touch. We didn't exchange updates or fake affection. We just let it be. And as I walked back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Later that evening, I sat on the couch with Jordan, watching her sketch lines on a blank canvas. Her focus, her calm, the way she hummed under her breath, all of it made me feel like I'd finally come home. I reached for her hand. There's something I want to tell you, I said. She set down her pencil. Okay. I met up with Emily today. She blinked but didn't pull away. Why? She asked to talk. I wasn't sure I should, but I needed to close that door properly. And did you? I nodded. Yeah. I did. Jordan looked at me for a long moment. Then, quietly, she said, "Thank you for telling me." That was it. No drama. No accusations. Just trust. I didn't realize how much that meant to me until later that night, when I caught myself watching her sleep, her hand resting lightly on my chest like a quiet reminder, "You're safe now. You don't have to run anymore." 2 weeks later, Evan made his decision. He was moving back, but not into my apartment. "I need my own space," he said. "For once." I smiled. That's probably a good idea. And it was. We were still close, but there was finally a healthy distance. For the first time in our lives, we weren't overlapping versions of the same story. We were writing our own. One Sunday, the three of us, Jordan, Evan, and I, went to a little music festival. Nothing big, just local bands, food trucks, and string lights hanging between trees. At one point, Jordan pulled me into a slow dance near the edge of the crowd. I could feel Evan watching us from where he stood, sipping a beer and nodding to the rhythm. There was no jealousy in his eyes. No competition. Just calm. When the song ended, he raised his drink and smiled. And I realized, in that moment, how far we'd all come. We'd been through a storm, a confusing, painful, tangled storm, but we'd stepped out of it changed. Not ruined. Transformed. Now I'm sitting here, months later, telling you all this, not because I want sympathy, or even understanding. But because I think someone out there needs to hear it. That people can betray each other and still grow. That love can come back in a different shape, in a different voice, and still be real. That you can forgive someone without inviting them back in. And that healing doesn't always look like forgetting. Sometimes, it looks like remembering, without flinching. My story didn't end with fireworks or a grand romantic gesture. It ended with a slow return to myself. To the person I'd buried under comparison, jealousy, and fear. I'm not perfect. Neither is Evan. Neither is she. But we're trying. And honestly, that's enough.